3-part series in mental health and physical activity. So we've gone through the journey of looking at what it is to feel low and what the physical remedies are for that. We've also looked at perfectionism and inability to ask for help and the physical remedies for those. If you've missed those, do pick them up on the YouTube scroll bar. You should be able to see it there. And then today we're looking at self-criticism and what the physical remedy is for self-criticism. So what is that self-criticism then? So for me, it is that voice that is annoyingly saying, "You're not enough. You are a failure. You never get anything right. This is not the way that other people are doing things." Comparing myself to others and then beating myself with the stick for that. And when I feel I don't measure up, and again, these are all perceptions and feelings. Remember, feelings don't equate to facts or truth. So a lot of the times, whatever we are feeling isn't necessarily the truth. So, but then we have the concept of what we're feeling is our perceived truth. So it's good to have a distinguishment between those two, where you have, in fact, the aspect of this is how I'm feeling, and therefore it's my perceived reality and truth, but this is actually the facts. And when I stack up the facts, it is actually not so. It is not the real factual truth and not just perceived. So for me, it's always been, "Oh, Evans, why have you done this?" It's not even, "Oh, Sylvia, why haven't you done this?" It's Evans. So I'm addressing myself in the third person, not even worthy of my name. And then it is blah, 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 whatever it is. "Oh, how could you forget that?" Or "How is it possible?" Now, this used to be quite toxic for me. I would self-loathe. So instead of being angry with other people, I'd often get angry with myself for not doing things. And that would just make me make me feel rubbish, of course, which then detracts from my self-worth or my perceived self-worth, and then from my self-esteem. So that feeling that I have about myself, how comfortable am I with myself? Do I love myself? Those are all the things that self-criticism goes against. It's like, you should not love yourself. You are not worthy of love. So all the negative phrases that you can think of, that's that self-critic. That's the voice in the head that goes blah, 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 blah. And oftentimes, if we're not careful, if we don't have a filter for those, we go, yeah. And actually, that is so not the right thing if we are wanting to thrive and really love ourselves for who we are. And so this is a really interesting topic, because I can so see how over time that could lead to one going, well, actually, there's no purpose in life, there's no worth in life, there's no, why am I even here? Because I don't matter. I don't add any value to society. In fact, every time I try something, it absolutely blows up or it fails. Or I have been trying to pursue this stuff for years and clearly I'm just not good enough. So that is the self-critic. It's like la 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 la. And how do we make that la 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 stop? So this is where it is, what I alluded to in the beginning with the facts, like lining up, so saying, okay, I feel this way right now, let me weigh up the facts. Okay, actually, I have done this and this and this and this, and therefore what I am being told by my self-critic is not true, and I'm not buying it. I'm not taking it. So as soon as you can get to that point where you reject that thought and say, absolutely not, I am actually okay, I have done everything that was possible or in my ability to do at that point in time, or whatever the scenario is. So therefore, there's no validity or no factual evidence to base that I am a failure on. And I also enjoy the fact that, you know, life is messy and we're not perfect. So even if the self-critic comes up against you with things that you know is actually incorrect, then you have enough self-compassion to be resilient against that. So for instance, I had an argument with a friend, and I was like absolutely losing it in this argument. And obviously afterwards, you're like, oh my word, how is that even possible? Why did I do that? And also I was like, okay, but there was validity in my anger. However, the way that I delivered that was incorrect. So I can learn from this. And next time I will try my utmost to be a lot more factual about the way that I engage and not let my emotions dictate some aspects of the conversation. Because in fact, what conversations are, arguments are, it's exchanging of information, or perceived or factual. And if it's perceived and not factual, then it's up to us to relay that information in a manner where the other person can take that on board. So that is called assertiveness. So assertiveness is not going and willy-nilly like telling people what you think. Yeah, it's important to relay your thoughts, and if you are passionate about something, to speak your mind. But also it is to do that all in a fashion or in a way that people can understand your point. Because there's one way of saying things where you're like, la 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 la. There's a lot of la-las in this take today, so clearly there's some passion that's wanting to come out. But whenever you're trying to relay a very strong point, or something that you feel convicted about, or that you feel injustice about, there is a way where you can relay that by screaming and shouting and letting it out and getting really frustrated. Or you can literally use the stop principle, where you say, stop, take a step back, observe, and then proceed once you've observed that. So, and with that proceeding, then you can objectively say, actually, I've noticed that you've said this. However, I feel that this is not the way that it is, or this is, if you had noticed, I have done this and this and this. So it's relaying your stance in a way that can be clearly understood by the other person. Because as the producer of the communication, it's your responsibility to ensure that the receiver of the communication actually gets the message. And sometimes that's hard when there's emotion involved and where it's up against some really touchy topics. Then it becomes tough to remain cool, calm, collected, and assertive. And so, by the words, where you can relay your feelings and your message in a way where you're like, this is it. However, I'm not getting defensive or overtly angry or in a way that is offensive to the hearer. However, I am relaying this information because this is the way I see things. And therefore, you can then break it down in steps where the hearer can actually understand your point. Because essentially, if we get worked up, as I did with my friend, then that other person shuts off. There's no communication that's happening. And then, of course, after the fact, it is a lot easier then to reflect and to say, okay, well, I was in the wrong, and therefore I will go and apologize or ask for forgiveness, or whatever the case is for that. But during that moment, and I guess the more we practice it, because it's still a journey for me as well, the better we can get at just being objective about things. to know that I have done everything in my ability to do whatever X, Y, and Z, and I see that you are interpreting it this way, and therefore that makes me feel rather taken aback or angry, and I would like you to know that so that we can work through this, or however you'd like to phrase it. But by attacking someone, it's not going to help that conversation. And then your self-critic is just going to get more and more and more displeased. However, so what I was saying about the communication aspect, even in times where you are in the wrong, you can address your self-critic in a positive way by saying, yes, I know I was in the wrong, I understand that, but also I am just fallible, and I'm not just taking this away willy-nilly or using it as an excuse, but my self-critic, I am going to work on myself and try and do this better next time. And by that, I need to have more relationships, and I need to have more communication with people to practice that. So shush a bit. Like, I'm not wanting to get beaten over by you, and I won't allow that. So listen to that inner voice and listen to what it's saying, because oftentimes it means that if you have a very strong inner critic, you probably have a strong moral compass, and you probably have a very, very high expectation of yourself, which, as I mentioned in the previous session with perfectionism, is an unrealistic standard. So often we have unrealistic standards when it comes to our way of doing things, our behavior, or whatever the case is. And yes, it's really great to get self-actualization through what we're doing. So to strive to be that best version of self, and to get our ducks in a row. But fact is, there are going to come times, because we're human, and we've discussed this before, that we're just not going to meet either our own mark or the mark of others, and therefore that is fact. So by beating ourselves up, or internally like having a immense boxing match, is not going to help to boost your self-esteem. It's not going to help you to be that person that you want to be, and it's also not going to help you to learn how to do things differently, because that's that whole definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That is not going to work if you have a self-critic and you are, yes, I'm feeding you more self-critic and I'm letting you go on free rein. That is not going to help you to get back to the point where you can change. And again, it's awareness before change. So if you take on board the elements of, yes, I hear you, self-critic, but that is not ammo for me. I'm not going to use that hand grenade and blow myself up because of it. It is just, yeah, cool, thanks for letting me know. I'm gonna work on that, and off I go. The other aspects of self-criticism is that it often leaves us feeling low, which takes us back to part one. But that is not a place where we can flourish. That's also not a place where we can help others, and it's not a place, certainly, where we can help ourselves. So one of the physical remedies that I use and what that I see, it's a physical behaviors for self-criticism, is self-care. Now it's a bit counterintuitive, because if you're applying self-criticism, all you want to do is to like die in a ditch somewhere. However, this is the time to go, you know what, Sylvia, I love you, and I get it, you've messed up this time, or I get it that, could possibly have done something better, or I could reach new heights, or made a different decision, or whatever that is. But fact remains, I didn't do that in the time. And you know what, Sylvia, it doesn't mean that I love you less. In fact, this means this is my journey, this is our journey. And what I then do is self-care through having a salted bath. I love Epsom salts, or magnesium salts. Tons of that in a bath with candles, Holkatut, lights off, and then I apply the mindfulness, which we've discussed in part 2, where I literally remind myself that, okay, I am here now. Take a few deep breaths, feel the water. I see the candle's reflection in the tiles. It reminds me a bit of a spa, which is great. And then I'm like, okay, what is that I'm smelling? Oh, it's the vanilla fragrance of the candle. What am I feeling? It's the heat of the water. Or it's a cold breeze that somehow has come in. Or I am actually feeling relaxed or relieved. What is my mind like? So I go through what I'm hearing as well. So the 5 senses, and then what is my feeling state? And that's where I start at the top, where I'm like, okay, what am I feeling at the moment in my body? I'd either do a body scan. So by the words like, okay, I'm feeling all the way down through my body physically, like imagining I'm going through my body up until my toes. But then also the feeling state of the mind. So what is the mood I am in? Am I in a good mood? Am I feeling low? Am I tranquil? Am I calm? Am I feeling anxious about anything? Am I angry? Am I fearful? What is it that I'm feeling? And that then allows me to address whatever it is. If I'm not in a tranquil and a calm state and I'm anxious about something, I can then address it by going through the factual list again. So I am anxious, so which means, remember we spoke about anxiety being in the future and depression being in the past. So I am anxious about something, and then I go through the facts of what is the validity of my anxiety. So let's say I'm anxious that I might not be going to Cyprus, which is one of the things that's coming up. Then I think about, so what is it that I can change? Like, so about the outcome of that. Nothing. Anyway, I go through the whole process of what are the facts that I'm facing and what's the validity of my anxiety. So for instance, also if we come back to the Cyprus thing, I'm due to go to Cyprus with the Air Force. I immediately went into, oh my goodness, it's another door that I've pushed and it is not going to happen. Complete catastrophe, or catastrophizing. So by the way, it's working out what is the worst result. I'm not going to go to Cyprus. So that's been a really interesting eye-opener for me, because I had to catch myself at one point and said, is this fact? Am I not going? And I was like, no one's told me I'm not going to go. So until that point of someone telling me you are not going to Cyprus, what is the point of me worrying about it or being anxious about it even? So I was just in the bath, chilling, thinking about where I am, like being the mindful stuff, and then also just thinking of happy thoughts and singing songs that I like and that lift me up. So that is also a really great tool for your vagus nerve, for your parasympathetic nervous system. I speak a lot about that. That's basically what allows, it's your rest and repair system of the body. So it helps your immunity and for your recovery. So if you have a high immunity, you have a high ability to recover or to fight off anything. And that is singing. Singing stimulates the vagus nerve, which is fantastic. So, and it's also one of the best ways to be mindful. So if you play any instruments, so I play guitar often quite, and that helps me to be in the present as well, because you need to be mindful about what you're doing, as each chord requires its own mindfulness. And the same with singing, you can literally just go into a meditative state, which is so helpful to be in that moment. Then also, I really think it's a great thing to do adult colouring books, to bounce sounds random, but bounce a table tennis ball, so a ping pong ball, on the table, and you can count. If you're really, really upset and out there, or trying to get yourself back into the present, that's an ideal way to do it. To go, okay, well, cool, I'm not quite there at the moment. My thoughts are all over the place. So bounce the tennis ball on a flat surface, and then count the amount of times it bounces, because towards the end it will go faster, and that keeps you in the moment, or brings you back into the moment. The other thing is ice on the back of the neck or on the pulses. That also brings one back into the moment if the thought process has gotten a bit out of control. Other things for self-care: soft fluffy blankets, very good for self-soothing. Also anything that is good on the skin, like creams, anything that you can smell. Those are good reminders of, you know what, I'm taking care of myself and I am okay. And then it comes to the positive self-talk, which is also part of self-care. It's what I mentioned throughout this video, is that we need to ensure that we buffer and bat those self-critic thoughts that come in with thoughts of, I am on a journey and I'm busy with this. I'm on the journey of progressing, or I'm busy with this. So stop harassing me right now. I am on that journey of recovery. I'm on the journey of becoming a better me. I'm on that journey of creating more and more positive aspects in my life. So stop. And that's sometimes all it takes. I remember at some point I used to just stop out loud and then regroup and go, okay, cool. So now I can think of something positive again. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on self-criticism. So we mentioned about the whole self-critic and how we can evaluate facts as opposed to what we are perceiving in that moment. So something that hasn't realized yet isn't a fact. And then also, what are the physical remedies to self-criticism? And we looked at certain aspects of self-care. So there are loads more things that one can do for yourself. Anything that is uplifting, makes you feel relaxed, that is something that you enjoy doing. So gardening is a great form of self-care as well, if that's something you enjoy. For me, not so much. But anything other than that, like sometimes exercise can be part of self-care. In fact, many of the times, unless you are using it as a stick to beat yourself up with. So if you're using exercise as punishment for your body, then that is not self-care. If you're using it because it makes you feel better at the end of the session, you get that endorphin rush, then yes, absolutely go ahead. So the other thing is also with self-care is us actually being in touch with ourselves, like knowing what the feelings are. So every day, if you can get in touch, I used to have a time on my phone for 3 p.m. where it said feelings as a reminder. So I had to initially, because I didn't know how to get in touch with my feelings, I used to set that daily, and then at 3 o'clock I'd be like, okay, how am I feeling? Because it was a foreign concept to me to work out what I'm feeling. And then the more I did that, the easier it got to identify the feelings. And then essentially now I don't need an alarm to tell me how I'm feeling or to remind me to check in how I'm feeling. And so if you can use any of these, I think it would be some great useful tools, or at least it's helped me on my journey and still helping me. I love self-care now. I never used to take time out for myself, and now I'm like, yes, bring it on. So I'm looking forward to seeing you back here for more on This Is Mental. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the 3-part series that we've had with mental health and physical activity. And if you have any ideas or anything that you'd like to see in future on mental health and physical activity, do drop me a line in the comments box or PM me on Insta. And I'm also looking forward to doing way more on the space of getting our journeys in order and ensuring that we can be happy on taking this mental health journey, and that shame gets kicked in the bus, perfectionism gets kicked in the face, and that we can really fully live our journeys with one another, and that we have no shame in expressing our feelings to one another, and that we can really find happiness and adventure without shame. Have a lovely day, everyone, and looking forward to seeing you back. Of course, as always, lots of love.